Hi guys, so welcome back to my YouTube, and today's video is going to be about following on, I guess, from my last Cosclay first impressions video. I'm going to go through the process of sculpting for the first time with it. So I sculpted the legs for my shoebill art doll that I'm currently working on as we speak. So this is my first time using it, so it was a little bit of an experimental process to work out how the Cosclay worked and how to work with it. So, but first I'm actually making some nails or claws out of Fimo first. I'm going to bake them in the oven to make sure they're hard, and then I'm going to be sculpting the Cosclay over it. So the reason why I did that is because I'm using black Fimo and I wanted these to be hard anyway. So I wanted to bake the Fimo because coloured Fimo tends to sort of get everywhere, especially the black and especially blue. It gets everywhere. So I wanted to sculpt it and bake it and make sure I can't get any of that black colouring over the light grey Cosclay. So the first thing, when I pulled it out of the box, I got the Kickstarter version, and I'm aware that the new formula for Cosclay is a lot softer and easier to work with. But I was pretty lucky with my Kickstarter version because it wasn't too crumbly, so I was able to work with it a lot easier than what I've seen other people work with. It just takes a lot of kneading and a lot of conditioning to get it to a workable texture. But when it is workable, it's quite malleable, I guess. Not really my favoured consistency. I like my clay to be a bit softer. That's why I work with Monster Clay, and that's why I work with Sculpting Original, because I like working with soft clays. Plus I'm also a pretty fast worker, so I like to be able to condition it quickly and then work fast. So I found it, once it's been conditioned, that it was, pretty easy to work with, but actually getting to that point took a long time because you had to get little sections out off the corners that you can see off the corners of the block and really work it in. I found rolling it between my palms a lot easier than trying to work it with my fingers, so that way you can get a little bit of heat into it and then use the strength of your palms to get it all together. So what I'm doing is basically doing the same sort of thing with any other polymer clay that I've worked with before, and just using the same techniques with wrapping things around the wire armature. The thing I found a little bit different with the Cosclay is the clay doesn't actually spin around as much as polymer clay on the wire armature. So with polymer clay, I like to use some foil over the top of an armature. So it creates a little bit of texture and it stops the polymer clay from spinning around and creating a bigger hole, and that's something that gets worse with softer clay. So I always like to use something that's a bit textured, so that polymer clay has something to adhere to. But I didn't really have much of a problem using the Cosclay against a smooth wire armature, so I guess that's a positive that I've noticed first off the bat. It is a lot harder to work with it and smooth out, I guess. It does smooth out quite well, I find, but it's a little bit harder to smooth out than polymer clay, especially soft polymer clays. So I found that using my fingertip works quite well. Also, a little like rubber end tool that worked also well, and in my little needle tool that you can see I have, that also worked quite well. Blending it into the polymer clay also didn't have a problem with that. With the textures that I'm creating and like the little wrinkles around, again, not too much of a problem. I was a bit concerned about if I go to bend the cured Cosclay that the texture, the little wrinkle bits might peel off, but I just made sure that I blended it in as best I could to the rest of the Cosclay, and so far I haven't had a problem with it. Haven't had a problem. Just wanted to make sure that it was properly blended into the rest of the Cosclay. Adding things on top of the Cosclay I didn't find too difficult either. I think when it comes to texturing things, that it doesn't hold texture as well as a polymer clay would, or it's not as easy to create the texture as well as a polymer clay, but I'll touch on that when I go to add some of the scaling effect on the rest of the feet. But so far so good. I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out. I wasn't sure how it also takes paint, but I go into that at the end of the video as well. So the rest of the sculpting was just making sure I've got the feet at the right, looking right, I guess. So yeah, again, just working the Cosclay over the armature. I think with this bit, I did get a little bit of that spinning on the smooth armature, but again, nothing as bad as what you get with a soft polymer clay. Alright, so with the texturing, I tried a couple of different techniques. I wanted to see how the texture would look if I used a small ball tool, just to create some scaling. It was pretty good, it wasn't too bad. Normally when you're making scaling like this with polymer clay, you'd get a really, really thin piece of plastic to put over it and then use that ball tool to create little indentations and details on the clay. I found this worked very similar to having a plastic over the top. It just obviously it creates a little bit of those indentations and raises at the edges. So you could put a really thin piece of plastic over the top, but I found it works okay without it, similar to polymer clay. But I didn't really like the texture that it or the detailing that it had, so I tried a different approach with that type of texture. Adding little wrinkles to the edge of the toes was okay as well. It sort of makes more of a dint rather than a line, I guess, because it is that sort of plasticky feel to it, and that's what makes it posable and bendable, is that plasticky-ness to it. But overall, adding bits like a bigger bit like this, I had no problems as well. It blended in really, really nicely, and also stuck to the other Cosclay really nicely as well. So for the texturing, I wanted like more symmetrical circles, so I actually got a end of a click pen and just used that to create some little indentation textures on the actual piece. I think it worked really well. It does create more of a circle, so I sort of mixed it up a bit with doing like edges of it and stuff, just to make it a little bit more natural. And then I went ahead and tried out the paint. Painting seems to be no problem at all. I thought it may crack a little bit when you're bending it, but I haven't had that problem as of yet. So that's really good to know that you can paint on it. So overall, I definitely will keep using it for posable things like bird feet. I think it's really, really great for that. But yeah, 10 out of 10 I think. I'd like them to work on the consistency, but I'll try the new versions. But that's pretty much it for me today. Hope you enjoyed the video. The rest of the shoebill sculpting will be coming up. So I'll be sculpting the head. There'll also be the joint and the wings tutorial that will be over on my Patreon exclusively, and also making the whole doll. So you can keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, thank you to my Patreons. I really appreciate the support. You can check out the link in my description if you want to join and help me out. Also, check me out on Instagram, Facebook, Creatures and Nat, and my shop, creaturesandnat.com, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.